In my last video, I experimented using cheap watercolor paints on an expensive watercolor paper, and this is the result. Now today, let me show you how I painted this simple landscape. So grab your materials and let's get started. On the right side of my paper, you'll see that I have already prepared the palette for this painting, which includes different shades of blues, greens, purples, and even a convenient gray mixture. Later on, I'll also add a pop of red for contrast. To start off, I will wet the whole sky area with clean water and make sure that it is really wet but not soaking wet. Then I will load my brush with this light blue color and just drag my brush left and right, and that will make the sky. I don't know the color of this pigment since this is really cheap. The colors are not named, so just grab any light blue color that you want for your sky. Next, I will load my brush with dark blues and purples for the distant trees. Just make sure that there is more paint than water to achieve this effect, so that your paint will not spread farther than you intend to. I will also introduce some greens in this mixture for a more interesting look. Next, using different shades of greens and yellow greens, I will use the dry brush technique to build the grassy area at the front. So all you have to do is use the side of the brush and lightly scrub or drag it on your paper, across your paper. If you're not so used to this technique, you can also use a scrap paper and practice dry brushing. To achieve this dry brush look and for that beautiful texture, make sure that your brush is loaded with less paint and water. Also, when doing this dry brush, I find it easier to use smaller brushes than bigger brushes like mop brush and big flat brushes. While that is still wet, I will also drop other shades of green and make sure that the bottom part is darker. This will give us an illusion of depth and will lead our eyes to look in our focal point, which is the house. Now let's leave this to dry before working on the next layer. My first layer has fairly dried now, so I can work on other parts. I'll add some shadows on the houses using my convenient gray mixture. If you don't have gray, you can mix blue and brown, or brown and violet. Then I'll grab my flat brush and do that. Now for the bushes, I'm just painting random shapes here. That's why I'm using my flat brush. I love the random shapes that it creates. I'll also use the same brush for the fence and the pine trees, the defined trees in the background. If you don't have a flat brush as small as this, or relative to the size of your painting, don't worry, you can just use your round brush or even a fan brush for the trees. Just use whatever is readily available to you, okay? Don't worry too much. Just create these random shapes as long as they look like bushes and trees and fence and not anything else. That should do. That should be enough. I will also add some details like windows and doors in the houses. And with a quick diagonal motion, I'll paint the grasses in the foreground. Excuse Mr. Sun, who decided to shine brightly on my painting. The next part will be adding final details for our painting. And with that, I decided to switch to my synthetic round brush. This is a really good brush for me when it comes to creating details since it's snappy and it retains its shape when wet. So I will reshape the houses using the color of the background. I will add more details on the trees in the background, more windows and doors perhaps, some birds flying in the background, and most of them pointing to our focal point, which is the house. And then as a final touch, I'll introduce a warm color on this palette, which is red, and just paint the roof with this color. So it's really just a simple landscape. And if you haven't already, you can check out the video where I tested this cheap watercolor paints on both expensive and cheap watercolor papers. Links below. I would also love to see your version of this painting, So if you can, please share it via the Facebook link down below. Thank you for painting along. I'll see you next time.